when the hero, Stanley Pinkerton, has invited the social worker, Susan Flowers, to dinner. The red and gold fire-spitting dragon entrance to the restaurant was every bit as fantastic as a Hollywood setup. Once they crossed into the dining room, it was pure cacophony. The hostess's face lit up with a huge smile when she saw Susan. "Ah, Ting Hao, it's you. Where have you been? We haven't seen you in such a long time." "I've been very busy, so much work to do." "I know about that. Like here, too. Tourists come in more every day." "This is my friend Stanley Pinkerton. He's from London." "Oh, so nice to meet you. A friend of Ting Hao is our friend, too. Just a moment. I must tell Ah Feng you are here." She beckoned to a server who came over. He bowed to her after the hostess exchanged several words with him in Chinese. "Go with Girl Ai, Ting Hao. He will give you the best table." "I don't want you to go to any trouble." "No trouble, Ting Hao. Don't worry. You go get comfortable. I'll call Ah Feng." When they were seated at a white cloth-covered table raised on a dais in back of the restaurant, Stanley asked, "Why do they call you Ting Hao?" Susan laughed. "It's kind of a joke, really. It means the best of the best, or something like that in Chinese. I helped the son of one of the workers here get a scholarship to Berkeley. His mother is Ah Feng. Oh, here she comes." Ah Feng trotted to their table, bowed, and took Susan's hands into hers. "Ni hao, Ting Hao. So long I don't see you," she exclaimed joyously. "Ni hao, Ah Feng. You're speaking English." "Yes, I go to class, like you said." "How is Goji?" "Oh, he is very fine. He call himself Gary now. He studies very hard, make Dean's List." "I'm so proud of him. Tell him I said so." "I tell him next time. He is so happy to see you." "You have my card. Tell him to call me when he has time." Ah Feng bowed and said, "I do that. Now I must go cook dim sum. I make you something special for you and your friend." "Oh, yes, this is Stanley. He's from London." "Ni hao," said Ah Feng. She smiled, bowed once more to both of them, and trotted back to the kitchen. "You'll have to explain this to me, Susan. I'm a little confused. How do you know them?" "It's a long story. I came here for lunch one day about 2 years ago, and there was this young kid who was serving me. The restaurant wasn't busy, so we talked. He'd finished high school and wanted to go to college to study engineering. Anyway, I helped him get a full scholarship to Berkeley. He works here part-time to help his mother with her expenses. I'd like to find her a better place than that dark little hole she lives in." "It sounds as if that will happen once her son gets his degree and starts working as an engineer." The server set their table with tea and utensils. It wasn't long before the first trolley appeared with steaming baskets of dumplings and noodles. They ate until they were full. "I can't eat another delicious bite," said Stanley. "This is really fabulous Chinese food. Thanks for bringing me here." "I'm sure you have Chinese restaurants in London." "Yes, we do. I mostly did takeout. You've ruined me for it now." "Well, at least you know how great Chinese food can be." Stanley asked for the check when the server came to remove the dishes. "No check," he said. "Happy birthday to Ting Hao." On Grant, heading towards the parking garage at Union Square, Stanley asked if it was really her birthday. Susan laughed. "No, it's another little joke. It's their way of saying thank you for getting Goji a scholarship." "You are amazing." "Not really. It's my job to help people." "I wish I had a camera to take a picture of Ah Feng's face when she saw you." "That's why I do the sort of work I do. I guess the payoff is that big smile." "Yeah, and for me, it's when the audience gives us a round of applause." Positive reinforcement, right? They were walking side by side towards Paul in the square. Stanley reached for Susan's hand and brought it to his lips for a kiss before the light turned to green. He glanced at her. There was a smile on her face. They held hands to the entrance of the parking garage. "I'll drive you to your hotel." "No, it's nearby. I can walk." "Let me give you my home number in case you can't get me at the office." I need some more information. I might need some more information. I really do want them to approve of this, Stanley. I think there won't be a problem for the tutoring, but offering a ballet program for girls at the Primrose might be regarded as excessive, or I don't really know how to phrase it. Elitist. Maybe. I need something to counter an argument that they need shoes, like they need shoes before they need ballet shoes. I have to be prepared to override their objections. I have to fight for every dollar I get for my proposals. So I have to be careful that what I ask for will result in a successful outcome. I think I'm beginning to understand the challenges you face. I have to agree that proposing ballet instruction for the poor would appear excessive when in fact they are in need of shoes. I've thought about this deeply, Stanley, ever since I met you. Why should we prevent a young girl from realizing her dream on account of a few dollars? We should at least give them a chance. That's marvelous what you want to do for them. I'll call you tomorrow, or I can call you. I'll be out and about tomorrow. I'll give you a ring. I can leave a message at your hotel. It's not a very nice hotel, a bit seedy but economical. That's all right. What's it called? The Anchor. Okay, if you're not in, I'll leave a message. Stanley tried to conceal his panic when he gave her a kiss on the cheek. He just botched his opportunity to tell Susan the truth about himself and why he really ended up homeless on the streets of San Francisco. That would have ruined a perfectly wonderful evening. No, he would have to wait for a better moment for a true confession.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Joan, put your purchasing information in the chat. And now we have Nancy Martin. And Nancy and I are both fellow Sonomans. And Nancy was born in San Francisco, raised in Marin County, and she migrated north to the Valley of the Moon. And she's lived here since 1976. Her book is From the Summer of Love to the Valley of the Moon, and it chronicles her interesting and unusual life. Nancy, take it away.
Thank you, Judy. I'll be reading from the opening pages of my memoir, Walking the Gangplank onto the entrance of Juanita's Galley, a nasty combination of fish and septic gag glue, cutting through the scent of my musk oil. This was the night after my mother threatened me. Don't ever let me hear that you've been to Juanita's. It has the worst reputation in San Francisco Bay Area, and you'll never live it down. Naturally, I could hardly wait to get there and check it out. Inside, the air was thick with smoke, reeking of booze and patchouli. What a scene. It was 1966, and I was 18-year-old Nancy Tyndall, still innocent but rebellious as hell. My much more worldly new friend Bonnie and I had our weekend all planned. Bonnie was a pretty petite Sex Pistol born for trouble. Her new boyfriend Kelly was a drummer with the Marin County band Morning Glory and booked to play at Juanita's on Saturday night. We arrived with our long, dark, shiny, parted down the middle hair, wearing vividly colored mini dresses, knee-high black leather boots, and sparkly love beads. Bonnie's hair was chocolate brown and straight as a stick. I envied her Joan Baez look. Mine was long, dark, and curly wavy. I would lay it over an ironing board and take a hot iron to it to get the look I wanted. All night, we alternately got high in the bathroom or danced our asses off to the band's screaming loud, mesmerizing, psychedelic sounds. Bonnie was snorting speed. Who knows where she got it? This penchant for the hard stuff would be her ultimate undoing. The club owner, Juanita Musson, was a bona fide character. She easily weighed 250 pounds, had long gray hair, huge pendulous boobs, and a loud, brassy voice. Juanita would greet her hosts, sprawled on her large, untidy bed. A pet monkey scampering around would nip at you if you got too close. Every patron had to pass the bed for inspection, which was stationed near the entry of her houseboat nightclub, floating on Sausalito's Richardson Bay. Kelly brought his friend Al Strong to our table during the band break. Al was the bass player in the Sons of Champlain, another Marin County rock band that was making a scene around the Bay Area. According to Al, we originally met late one night at the Red Kettle, a funky diner on the canal in San Rafael, where Bonnie and Kelly introduced us. Al was cute, funny, and a few years older than me. That night at Juanita's, he was dressed in a cool paisley shirt, strings of love beads, and soft brown leather, handmade boots. The guys in his band called him Fuzzy because he had shoulder-length light brown hair and a huge fluffy mustache. When the band began their set, Bill Champlin, the band leader, introduced Fuzzy to the audience. Al came out to the edge of the stage and did a crazy little comedic dance. He was hilarious, eliciting laughter and applause. We hung out together all night. Before long, we were a steady item, and my life as I'd previously known it was at an end. My new hippie lifestyle would become the bane of my mother's existence.
Congratulations. And next up, we have Brenda Bellinger. And Brenda writes from an empty nest on an old chicken farm in Northern California. Her work has appeared in Small Farmers Journal, Mom Egg Review, Persimmon Tree, FEMA, the California Writers Club Literary Review, and in various anthologies. Taking Root, a story of betrayal and courage, is her first novel. Brenda.
Thank you, Judy. First, I just want to thank Redwood Writers for providing this opportunity for its members, and particularly huge thanks to Jeannie Sloan and to Judy Baker for coordinating all of this. Delaney Moran, age 17, struggles with an anxiety disorder, panic attacks triggered by the sound of a siren. She left home to get away from her mother's toxic lifestyle. Delaney supports herself by flipping items she finds in thrift stores. A bracelet she purchased turns out to have been lost. In this scene, she is arranged to meet the grateful owner at a coffee shop to return it to her. And this is the book. As soon as she turns the corner onto Main Street, she sees a flashing red light several blocks away that appears to be heading in her direction. Not now. She stops and fumbles in her purse for the headphones as her heart begins to race. Fitting them over her ears, she looks up to see cars beginning to pull off to the right side of the road. Delaney has two options: duck into a business and wait it out, or try to run to the coffee shop 2 blocks away. The nearest business is the R&R Lounge with its black exterior, pink neon lights, and bars on the windows. After that, a vacant lot full of trash, weeds, and broken glass. She breaks into a run, cursing herself for not changing into her Vans, hoping she can make it to the Bean before the ambulance gets any closer. Taking advantage of stalled traffic, she dashes across the street. The ambulance is still a block away. She has half a block to go. Pedestrians hear the rapid click of her heels on the sidewalk and move out of her way. The siren pauses and the ambulance enters the intersection, just as Delaney yanks the door of the coffee shop open and runs inside. She's halfway across the floor before she can come to a stop, aware that everyone is looking at her. Coffee cups are held in mid-air. Conversations have become hushed whispers. The steamer on the espresso machine has even ceased hissing. She stands there, headphones on, her chest heaving as she tries to catch her breath. Delaney feels a hand on her shoulder, and she turns to see the kindest eyes she has ever seen looking at her. Delaney? Delaney nods and tries to speak, but can't find any words. I'm Luella. Taking Delaney's hand in both of her own, she gently pulls her away from the stairs. Why don't you come sit over here, child? I've saved us a place. Other customers avoid eye contact and resume their chit-chat as Luella leads her to a small round table. Delaney notices Luella's large red hat and suddenly remembers her headphones. She pulls them off and stuffs them into her purse, quickly smoothing her hair with her hands and brushing her sweaty bangs away from her eyes. I'm sorry, Delaney starts to say as she perches on the edge of a seat. You take a deep breath, child, while I get you a cold drink. Luella goes up to the counter and returns with a large Italian soda flavored with creme de menthe syrup. She puts it in front of Delaney and hands her a straw, then sits down. Can you tell me what all that hurry was about? Delaney grips her glass and watches as Luella slides her cup of tea to one side and leans in across the table, patiently waiting for an answer, her hands folded. She guesses Luella to be about 60 or so and not very tall. She has a soft roundness about her shape, and she's wearing a white cotton blouse with a tiny flower print loosely tucked into a denim skirt. Her skin is the color of milk chocolate. Delaney feels herself begin to relax just a little as she peels the paper from her straw. This time, she doesn't try to fabricate a reason or avoid the question. It's a problem that I've always had, she says, surprised at her honesty. With a nod, Luella encourages her to continue. Did you hear that ambulance go by? I did. Delaney shifts in her seat and takes a sip of her drink. This is wonderful. Delaney tries to force a smile but can't. I've never had one of these before. I usually get coffee. Go on, honey. Tell me about the ambulance. Delaney lowers her voice as she glances around the cafe. Well, it's not an ambulance so much. It's the sound of the siren, any siren. I don't know why, but it always freaks me out. I have to cover my ears as soon as I hear one, and that's why I always carry headphones in my purse. They don't completely block out the sound, though, do they? Luella asks. No, they don't. I was running fast because I wanted to get inside here before the siren got closer and louder. Usually I try to get inside someplace, anywhere, away from that noise. But when I first heard it coming, I was near a creepy bar, so I decided to try to outrun it. Luella takes a sip of her tea. The tag hanging over the lip of the little white ceramic pot reads Earl Grey. Can you describe how you feel when you hear a siren? Just afraid, really afraid. My heart beats so fast, and even with headphones on, sometimes I have to shut my eyes tight and count to myself until it passes. Luella sits up straight and crosses her arms. This sure sounds like a puzzle, all right, and you say it's always been this way. Delaney takes another long drink and sighs. Yes, for as long as I can remember, ever since I was little. Are you a doctor, Luella? What makes you ask that? Your questions, I guess. No one has really asked me about it before. No, child. I used to be a social worker in Alameda County before I retired. That's what they paid me to do, pretty much. Ask a lot of questions.
Thank you, Brenda.
You're
And
welcome. Thanks.
next up, we have Britney Sweetie. And Brittany is a bicoastal artist and author of the poetry collection, Bubbly by the Sea. Her passion for the sea and life experiences are best reflected off the surface of her canvases through her photography and writing. And you can find her related works at bksweeting.com. Take it away.
Thank you, Judy, and thank you, Redwood Writers, for having me. This is Bubbly by the Sea. I'm so sorry it looks backwards to me. It might not be to you guys. Okay, well, this is Bubbly by the Sea, and one cool thing I have to give props to the cover designer is they made a heart at the center for this. I don't know if you can see that well through there. It's really pretty. And so this is Poetry with Purpose, Head and Heart, and I'll start with Filament, and I'll also show you guys the designs of my art as well throughout. So the first one is Filament, and I'll just show this to you ahead of time. You can see that, power lines. You are watching me, I am watching him. He is watching her, and she is watching us. Invisible thread marries knots and holes, delicately sewn straight through our souls. Electrical wires connecting us all, yet we are not connected, not at all. And then this is Crescent. Crescent. Typical lives insistent on routine, cloudless skies striving for pristine, scrambled minds not always seen, abundant behaviors craving relief. So many scales on a spectrum, puzzling conditions misrepresented. Try to solve all and put them all together. Why spend time to correct unseen weather? How about a sliver of waxing phase? Showcase support in an intriguing way. A vibrant crescent, unisex gold, illumination and intention growing so. Acknowledging history, no need to cure, nothing to correct or force to be pure. Neurotypical skies are not the only to embark, for stars shine brightest, viewed in the dark. The next one I chose for this is 100 Years, and these three are from the section, the first one is Head. 100 Years, little girl, olive-skinned, frizzy brunette, a focus on pretty pink barrettes, kitchen toys, kittens, and play makeup, defined roles, we do not dare admit it. Climb a tree, but do not scuff your flats. Adoring ponies, but never bats. A vote is a vote, but a seat is not guaranteed. Pay sacrificed and demand with no heed. 100 years has passed. What has changed? A curious laugh. Gazing into her eyes, I ask, what do you want? Now go be that. And then I move into the second section, which is actually right before that, I'll finish with Insight from the first section still. Insight, one small decision away, make troubles seem like yesterday's. A moment to turn off the TV, phone down, back stretching. you always dreamt of, life in the city or off in the mountains. No reason to not be there, no obligation or fears, a highest self, surrounded by wealth, could be friendship or tall bookshelves, inventing, painting, or curing cancer cells. Design the heart's desire, never let passion retire. Take insight and intentionally live your dream life. And then the next section is a little more dreamy, but I would consider this whole book a little bit of a memoir for me. The next one is in, I guess, the love section, which is Heart, Read Me. Wet morning, cafe cappuccino. A puzzle less interesting forces him to scan the room. Noticing me across the way enticed curiosity. He abandons the comfort of his warm nook, large soles, creek hardwood below. Running a finger down my spine incites a feel that cannot be defined. He offers me a spot at his table. Submissive, I accept. Lifting me lightly, I abandon the comfort of my shelf. Turning my pages, he is enamored, and for once in my life, I am admired. This was, in the truest of forms, love at first sight. And the next is Pinot Noir, because I am from wine country, as most of us are. Gotta love our Pinot. I sip you, silky stone fruit on thy lips. Pinot Noir. An evening on sunset's time, swaying hammock lying side by side, warm days and cool nights, humble hearth, a local delight, the most quality terroir, tasted this evening in Pinot Noir. His warm breath sends down a chill, down her neck, a lover's thrill, running into love a marathon high, his strong embrace and dark blue eyes. Explicit words form little grins, on wide and red lips a soft crimson. She searched for no one to be found on a whim. Now all she ever wanted was forever him. And the last one here in the section of Heart is titled Devotion. And I did this for that. She dove right into swirls of deep Prussian that grew, entangled within the velvet hues. Swimming against current is not easy to do. He was the one, tender and true, not the strain and pain of heavy-weighted blues. She let the waves of his praise submerge her, in sets, then all together. They anchored through all types of weather, a give and take that could never be better.
Thank
And
you
that was
so
last.
much. And now we have Robin Gabbert, who is also a poet, and I've had the privilege of working with Robin. Robin was a lawyer, and she finally escaped the drudgery of the law and returned to writing poetry. Her poems have been published in the Redwood Writers Anthology in 2020, and the California Writers Club in their 2020 literary review. Her first book of poetry, Diary of a Mad Poet, was published in October of 2020. Robin.
Hi, this is my book, Diary of a Mad Poet. And the first poem I'm going to read you was written about my sister. It's called Terry. It was actually written when we were in high school. She's not particularly pretty, and her nose is a little too strong. But as the heat and light of an oven changes a little of this and a little of that into a delicious dessert, she smiles. The next poem is called Brennan, Gone Too Soon. And it was written for a very good friend of mine named Sheila. Brennan was her son. Brennan, gone too soon. He roared like a lion, like the ocean, crashing against the rocky shore. Insides thrashing one struggle to the next. They say still waters run deep. Sometimes noisy waters run deeper. Run and jump and probe, trying to find purchase or trying to find quiet. There's a hole in the bottom of the deep blue sea, the blue-green sea that is the color of his eyes, always bringing him home to his mother's door, bringing him home to his mother's shore. He's there in the lap of the seagulls, in the storms that rumble and tumble your head, only to bring sun the next morning. He's in the clouds that darken your door one minute, only to break into amusing fluffy shapes the next. He'll turn up and surprise you just when you're least expecting it. He was and always will be, after all, a force of nature. This next poem is somewhat more like a short story than a poem, but a poem nonetheless. It's called After the Fair. White paper cups stained red and blue mixed with the now brown leaves of autumn. They crumble together around gray trees and blow against the park benches in the old square. Just last week, the square was alive. Painted horses, only slightly peeling, circled around and around while organ music like a toddler magnet drew customers to the carousel. The organ grinder played an overlapping tune, his costumed monkey miniature hopping around among the peanut shells. Their red jackets with shiny brass buttons had been made to match, although the man had consumed quite a few more peanuts, judging by its snugness. Children prompted by their parents put a coin in the monkey's tin cup before withdrawing already sticky hands. The mini rides and games took the place of the tables where daily chess games normally played out. The chess tables were covered with colorful plastic tablecloths, and large garbage cans sat next to their wooden benches. Preschoolers stood in line to ride the whirling teacups, some parents already looking a little nauseous, while teenagers queued up at the Tunnel of Love or spent their tickets on trying to beat the system and win a prize tossing rings over the necks of seriously slippery bottles. But now the fair is gone. Loaded onto trailers by greasy muscled men loaded onto trailers by greasy muscled men with smokes rolled in their shirt sleeves, while vendors counted dollar bill after dollar bill behind trunks of yellow rubber ducks, fuzzy pink elephants, and smiling unicorns with glittery pink tutus. The week had gone by in such a flurry of excitement that no one noticed the absence of the old grizzled man in the flannel shirt, who always sat on the far park bench under the heritage oak, scratching behind the ears of the calico cat. And my final poem is called The Subtle Knife. I am not Philip Pullman, but I often wonder if the santoku and paring knife, both of which mostly keep their head down and surrounded by streaks of teak and solidly encased in their block, are not each plotting their revenge against me, silently waiting just for the right opportunity to slice me in some unsuspecting locale. What will it be this time? Between my ring and little finger, at the bottom of my palm, just shy of that critical vein of blue running below the pale white skin of my wrist? Well, I used to think I wielded these tools with some skill, or at least tried to. I'm now inclined to think they are the ones that know their way around the kitchen, or more aptly, my anatomy. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. And next up, we have Laura McHale Holland. And in her work, she finds hope in unlikely places. Her memoir, Resilient Ruin, won a National Indie Excellence Award for New Adult Nonfiction. Prior award-winning books include her childhood memoir, Reversible Skirt, and Sisters Born, Sisters Found anthology. Her Kiminee Dream is her first novel.
Thank you. Here's the book cover. I'll be reading the prologue and a little bit from the first chapter. And thank you so much, Judy and Jeannie, for creating this wonderful event for us. Prologue. In the town of Kiminee, the end was never the end. Sorrow left supple scars, and wishes cracked reality. This was true back in January 1936, when a teenager forced too soon into womanhood darted through a moonlit winter night, exhaling moist clouds into biting air. Clad in a sleeveless cotton nightgown and slippers worn thin, the young fan of radio dramas Black Roses and Bing Crosby didn't wince at the cold. She ran on, eyes glazed with fever, dewy skin blemished. At the riverbank, she vaulted over snow-covered boulders onto solid ice, with arms outstretched and face tilted skyward. She glided. Voice wavering, she rasped a lullaby her mother used to sing in a city where coal dust muted the horizon. Her heart thrummed, tears flowed, blood slid down her thighs. She kicked up her feet. Gone were the slippers, replaced by skates of purest white leather with gleaming blades. Gone was the nightie, replaced by a costume with sequined rainbows and silver fringe. She leaped, spun, landed. Ice cracked. She rose and fell again. The brittle surface groaned. She leaped higher, higher. Each time a creak, a crack. Into the air she twirled once more. When she touched down, a fissure welcomed her. She plummeted, lips closed, eyes smiling. When she embraced her maker that bleak Illinois night in the depths of the Great Depression, all residents of the little community nestled along the river's curves were asleep, except for one. And for decades to come, they knew nothing of her brief life and demise, except for one. Chapter 1. Carly Mae Foley came into the world much like any other babe in 1953. She wailed when a doctor spanked her bottom. Her woozy mother croaked, "There you are," and then passed out. Her father raced from waiting room to nursery when he learned his newborn had arrived. Her brother and sister, flaxen-haired twins born 1 year to the day prior, dumped bowls of Cheerios from high chairs. They spoke in a secret language their grandmother mistook for babble as she pulled out her address book and dialed all her friends from her kitchen wall phone. Soon, Kiminee, Illinois, which had just grown from 1,256 to 1,257, was abuzz with the news, for whenever a new child arrived, people and animals alike set aside their differences to celebrate as one joyous whole. It was the Kiminee way. Mothers jigged around kitchens, children cartwheeled through the town square, fathers belted out show tunes in their fields, pigs played kick the can with bobcats, chickens dined with hawks, rabbits napped with coyotes. And for little Carly Mae, even the Bendy River got in the act, burbling a tune that sounded a lot like "You Are My Sunshine," while crawdads came out of hiding to march in formation along the banks. And it wasn't long before the auburn tufted addition to the Foley family became something of a celebrity. A wonder, genuine genius, 1 in a million were used to describe the little baby boomer, because in every developmental area, she did nothing but astound. That's it.
Wow. Delicious, absolutely delicious.
Thank
And
you.
I want to introduce Marty Mellon. And Marty is a semi-retired psychotherapist who began his writing career as the editor of a small college weekly newspaper. Remember those guys? His recently published collection of short stories, Grandmother's Devil and Other Tempting Tales, is available on Amazon and through independent booksellers. He's currently working on a novel. Marty.
Thank you to all of you that organized this. Here's the cover of my book. Grandmother's Devil and Other Tempting Tales is a collection of short stories about entirely fictional grandmothers. I've been asked why grandmothers, and my answer is I don't know. These are not my grandmothers or the grandmothers of anyone I know. Perhaps they're yours, perhaps not. Likely it doesn't matter. They have nothing in common really, except that they are wisdom keepers, as grandmothers often are across epochs and cultures. So I'm going to tell you a little about the stories. In the first story, Grandmother Sits, an old woman floats easily between worlds, none of them in as sharp relief as they once were. She spends her last hours on the front porch of her white wicker rocker, sipping tea from her favorite glass, the ones with the stenciled lemon slices. And in the second story, Grandmother's Predictions, a dissolute young man is brought up short by a vintage automaton that he's restored, and an eerie fortune-telling session drives him into the streets naked, stark raving mad, and who indeed is that nurse in the mental hospital who calls herself Grandmother. In the third story, Grandmother of God, a woman dwelling in a desert cave, writes the story of her grandson's life in excruciating death at the hands of occupying Romans, a testament she provides against the lies that grow ever more fantastic. The fourth grandmother is a recent widow who takes a job as a model for a life drawing class, only to discover her nude photos online. She takes her revenge. The fifth grandmother is a former cigar-rolling Cuban virgin who becomes the matriarch of a Napa Valley dynasty. She rescues her grandson from humiliating failure. The last grandmother lies comatose in a hospital following an automobile accident, where she is molested by an unscrupulous nurse. Grandmother's devil prepares to drag the nurse's soul screaming into hell, but grandmother has other plans. Here is the beginning of that story, Grandmother's Devil. One moment, I am vaguely aware that something horrific has happened, and the next, I am floating in softness. I reach out to touch the angel in front of me. I'm not surprised that he is blacker than burnished ebony. Or is he a purple so deep, so rich, I can't distinguish it from black? I have never sensed a color like this, so powerful, so complex, so pristine. I am consumed with erotic greed, and I hunger for infinitely more. I want this angel to wrap his arms and powerful legs around me, draw me into that polished slope at the joint of his thighs, where mortals would have genitals. I want him to consume me, to slake my incandescent lust. The angel looks at me with perfect serenity and then dissolves. In his place, a devil has taken hold of my hand. I presume I am damned since the angel has abandoned me. I presume the devil is here to oversee everything goes according to plan with my damnation. Perhaps this devil is merely an emissary, a minor demon assigned to a minor sinner. After all, I have done nothing truly evil in my life. I cheated on my husband a few times, but surely that is not completely unforgivable. Besides, he has already forgiven me. I continue cataloging my sins since I am certain this is what my devil expects of me, and I have many kinds of sin to my credit. I've broken most of the commandments. I chronically take the Lord's name in vain, and I don't expect to get off easy for that. But really, what did I ever do that was so monumentally evil? How did I merit my own devil? He of the exquisite eyelashes, the full crimson mouth, he naked as truth and whiter than starlight. I am still floating in the soft, soundless warmth, and my devil still holds my hand. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It is a very interesting little book, if you haven't read it yet. And next up, we have Mark Piper. And Mark is a multi-genre author with a PhD in English. His debut novel, You Wish, earned first place gold by the 2019 American Eagle Book Awards. His second novel, The Old Block, was published in 2020. More than 15 of his short stories have appeared in the Short Story America, the California Writers Club Literary Review, and online literary magazines. Mark?
Thank you. This is my book. Okay, I can do that. And this is a tagline. What would you do if you discovered your father wasn't who you always thought he was? I splashed cold water on my face to shock some life into it. I should be doing better than this. Over a month since the funeral, and I still wasn't getting much sleep. I glanced at my reflection, eased out a sigh. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw Dad looking back at me. Easy enough to see why. Some same dark eyes, same jawline, same smile. A smile that didn't come easily for me these days. At least I didn't break into tears this time. I ran a palm over my cheek. I'd either have to shave or commit to growing a beard. I flicked on the Norelco and started in on my 6-day-old stubble. The buzz of the razor wasn't loud enough to block out the voices that still wouldn't leave me alone. The clamor of 100 simultaneous conversations overwhelms me at the post-funeral gathering at the Choate Valley Presbyterian Church. The whole town is turned out. The barrage never lets up. Everyone feels compelled to corner me, pay their respects, share their fond memories of Jim Castle, his kindness, his gentle way with people, his humility, his willingness to step in and help, as if I somehow didn't already know what he was like. Mary Ellen Camp, our mayor, pumps my hand with her two-handed candidate's grip. Nick, your dad's smile always lit up the room. He will be missed. Charlie Hanson, the town pharmacist and Dad's frequent golf partner, leans in close to remind me Jim Castle was truly an honest man. Might be the only guy I know who never once cheated at golf. I reward his hearty guffaw with a forced smile. Mom's sister, Eloise, sincere as always, drunk as always, covers me with sloppy kisses and tells me, your dad was one of a kind. He could make anyone feel special, even those of us who weren't. I'll never forget the time I had too much to drink and I started to sound off about how life wasn't fair, and I tune her out. I've heard that story so many times, it's embedded in my brain. Okay, they were gonna miss him. I got that. But now that gathering and those songs of praise were long gone. Those well-wishers had moved on as if nothing had happened. Their day-to-day activities shifted back to normal. Mine wouldn't. My mentor, my role model, my best friend, my dad was dead. And now my life had a cavernous void in the middle of it that would never be filled. Dad and I did everything together. I was his shadow. For my whole life, the adults in Choate Valley have referred to me as Little Jim, or a chip off the old block, or the apple of his dad's eye, or a spitting image of the old man. Some still applied, but tired cliches couldn't begin to describe our relationship. I still remember early on, I must have been 5 or 6, my first Little League game. I'd failed miserably that day. On the way home in the car, I stared straight ahead, trying to hold back tears. Dad pulled over to the side of the road and stopped. After a moment, he laid his hand on my shoulder. Don't be so hard on yourself, Nick. It takes time to master this game. I looked over at him, my lower lip quivering my response. He pulled me into a hug. You got to remember, kiddo, baseball is a game of failure. He ruffled my hair. The best hitters in the big leagues average only 3 hits for every 10 at bat. Really? Yep. But don't worry, you've got the skills. You just need some help developing them. What does that mean? I wiped away the remnants of tears with my sleeve. Means you need some personal instruction, he chuckled. And you're in luck. I know just a guy who can do it. He threw his hands out to the side, grinned. He taught me plenty of skills, how to place my feet in the batter's box, how to generate power when I swung, all that stuff. But most of all, he taught me how to have fun playing the game. It was a lesson in baseball and in life I've tried to hang on to ever since. I've never been so close to anyone in my life. Guess that's why it's been so hard for me to let go. Even at Sonoma State, I regularly Skyped with my parents, most often with Dad on our bookstore's computer. And when I returned to Choate Valley with a degree, we picked up right where we left off. My degree was in English, which, if nothing else, made me a good candidate to run a bookstore someday. But Dad made sure I thought my career options through. Even an English major has some choices. I'm sure he knew all I really wanted to do was follow in his footsteps, same as I always had. But now his footsteps were gone forever. And I wasn't sure what that meant for me. Everything I did, everything I believed in, everything I hoped to become was a reflection of Dad. Being Jim Castle's son defined me. Like being Batman's sidekick defined Robin. And now? Well, now it didn't. Robin without Batman is just some weirdo in tights waiting for instructions.
Fabulous. And I want to say Jean got on. So Jean, would you like me to continue or do you want to take over? I'm going to go ahead and introduce Ida Ray. And Ida Ray Egli taught English and was chair of the English department at Santa Rosa Junior College. Her first two books were No Rooms of Their Own, Women Writers of Early California, and Women of the Gold Rush. She spent 20 years researching, interviewing for, and writing Krisanthi's War in Hitler's Greece, a novel. Ida Ray?
Thank you. And thank you to Redwood Writers and Judy and Jean, thank you for putting this together. A young Greek woman searches desperately for her missing toddler as German soldiers raid the village. The ancient outdoor amphitheater in sight, I nearly fall over Yanni staring out of the theater on his sprint home. I grab his arm. Where is Kiminee? I shout. There, he points toward the theater and then is off. I enter the theater and stare in blood-curdling horror as Kiminee is just then being scooped up by a tall, thin German wearing enough ammunition to annihilate the village. I stop short, my breath a fishhook in my throat. No moisture, no air, only wind. I cannot speak. The German seems all nose at first, red-faced, lanky, his shoulders rounded with a child, my child. As my thoughts race, Kiminee screams. She has spotted me and arms out, now begins to cry pitifully. My body jerks when her arms reach, her moist eyes pleading, distress buckling her face. The soldier's eyes stare me to the spot. My heart shatters, veins bursting in a dissonant rhythm. I know in my fiber that if he harms her, I shall die here in this old theater where Oedipus Rex and Antigone were performed for my ancestors. I freeze, nothing works, not my head, not my legs. I just remain there petrified, my breathing fast, a trapped animal assessing avenues of escape. Instinct tells me not to rush toward Kiminee and the Nazi. My mind flashes back to scrambling 5th century Athenian women searching desperately for their children while Persians burned Athens to the ground. At this minute, I am them. Our history is the same, a struggle between life and death. The soldier speaks to Kiminee, not harshly, but in nearly hushed tones, even as Kiminee pushes back from his chest, distancing herself from what she knows in her blood is danger. Or is it the look on her mother's face? I pain to call out, but know not what to say, what would help and not endanger her more. Kiminee suddenly swaddles her face with her hands, bends her head down and weeps. She tilts her head into the shoulder of the Nazi, resting her weeping face there, the soft down of her crumpled curls, caressing his chin and neck, the bird-like sounds of her cries so vividly those of a fragile little girl, afraid, compelled to fold to her captor. I watch the face of the soldier change, as though he is holding his own child, one he has back in the homeland, or one he wants someday when the war ends. I watch him soften, become more human, less fascist, just a man who could love a child. Rethinking, I know he's a fascist and has a job to do. I make a move toward them, but the soldier shouts, "Halt!" And I reach out to Kiminee, at the same time knowing such a move could kill her. I play my hand and he plays his. Behind me, I hear foot soldiers still stampeding the streets like runaway dogs. A woman screams just before I hear the sharp echo of a rifle shot, a thudding that is certainly a body toppling into rock. I maintain my spot in the swirling wind in this theater that plays out our drama. The soldier speaks again to Kiminee softly, bringing her head up by the chin to look into his eyes. Kiminee gazes bravely at him, searching. She looks over at me. I nod somehow, not knowing why. Then she begins to wipe grease from the soldier's cheek with her finger. She brings her thumb to her mouth and licks it before returning to the soldier's cheek, where she wipes at the dark streak until it is gone. It seems the only thing she can think to do, and I am both terrified for and proud of her. The soldier struggles to suppress emotion, his face fighting a curl of pleasure for Kiminee alone, and then his eyes turn to bore through me, his neck a map of blue veins. There is anguish and more, compassion, confusion, I cannot tell. He examines my face, enemies face to face, who look more like humans than barbarians, galvanized into inaction by the grace of a child. A whistle blows below at the square. Doors slam. I hear village men in the street shouting back over their shoulders. "Don't worry, I'll be okay," one stammers, although his tenor is hardly convincing. Suddenly the soldier puts Kiminee down, not looking at me, turning his back to lope toward the street. He turns back only once as I sweep the running Kiminee into my arms. His eyes meet mine, and I see him taking his rifle by the sling from the shoulder. My relaxing heart seizes, but then in the next second he is gone, his lanky torso lumbering out of the theater to the street, to disappear behind the row of houses. Thank you.
Hey, Judy, I'm going to jump in just real quick. That was powerful. Let's spotlight that. And we're going to use this as a brief transition because you got to me and I know how important this is to Jean. And I want Jean to introduce the last three speakers.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Judy and Sean. And I had terrible internet difficulties. And I spent the entire time trying to figure it out. Well, I would like to welcome Skye Blaine. She writes fiction, memoir, poetry. She develops themes of aging, coming of age, disability, and awakening. Skye has received an MFA in creative writing from Antioch University and has been published in 11 anthologies. Her first novel, Unleashed, earned an Indie Brag medallion. She will read from her literary fiction, Must Like Dogs, Book 2 of the Penzing connection.
Here's my book.
Oh, good. Very good.
All right. Much Like Dogs is the second book in the Pensing Connection series. Rowan is now 15. Her parents are Mossy and Carolina, and her dog is Zephyr. Chapter 1, December 2009, and this is obviously the opening for the novel. At dawn on Christmas, Rowan woke, stretched, and glanced out the window. Big fat flakes sailed past like kites. Usually a white Christmas delighted her, but she dreaded this holiday. A knot of tension lumped in her belly, and unable to get back to sleep, she slipped out of bed. The gleaming hardwood floors in the ranch house here at Bender's Ridge were heated, cozy for bare feet on frigid winter mornings. She walked to the window and squinted. The snow came too thickly to tell the depth, so she tiptoed to the front of the house, turned on the porch light, and peered outside. The white stuff at the ranch was clean and kind of crunchy, unlike the dirty, slushy street snow in Eugene. It was hard not to live at Bender's Ridge all the time, but Mossy and Mom said the schools were better in Eugene. At least they got to come to Sisters almost every weekend during the school year. Sometimes it was a little gnarly driving in a blizzard, but generally chains got them through. Zephyr danced at her feet, and Rowan patted her giant dog, smoothing the tufts of hair that stood up on her head. Anxious to get outside, huh? The dog nosed her and sat, eyes fixed on her face. Rowan opened the door. Zephyr streaked out to do her business, poking deep holes in the drifts on the deck, leaping and cavorting in the front circle. At least 4 inches had already accumulated, which meant much more on the mountaintops. Zephyr trotted back to the house, shaking hard before coming inside. Rowan wiped all 4 paws, making sure to work the towel between the pads of each foot. Then she kneaded her wiry coat from nose to tail tip. Rowan chewed her thumbnail, still annoyed at her mom for the comment she'd made 2 days before. Ro had been outside with Zephyr, working on their hide and seek game and honing their telepathy skills, but with play, because otherwise dogs get bored. She'd forgotten to fold the laundry and her mom hollered, "Please get in here and make yourself useful." Mom always acted as though her practice with dogs had no value. Rowan knew it was her life's work, unfolding and expanding every day, and to have her mom repeatedly dismiss it smarted. Most days she brushed off her feelings, but something about her mom's words this time ate at her. She shook off her distress. Zephyr by her side, they padded down the hall to peek in the library at the back of the house, but she signaled not to cross the threshold. Each year, following his family's ritual, Mossy, her dad who adopted her, tied a red ribbon swag across the doorway. No entering until after the family shared a special breakfast. She flicked the switch next to the door and thrilled as little lights illuminated the tall, freshly cut cedar. She sniffed the wintry scent. The tree held many handmade ornaments, including some she'd made in grade school. She always acted like they were childish, but she secretly warmed at seeing them. Would this Christmas be awful? She was fed up with her mom's attitude about her telepathy gifts. I can't handle another day of her either ignoring the truth or scorning it.
Wonderful, thank you. Welcome, Marlene Cullen. She offers inspiration to writers through her series called The Right Spot. Marlene's blog includes writing prompts, places to submit writing, encouragement to write, and techniques to improve writing. Marlene is the producer of Writers Forum, where diverse presenters talk about the craft and business of writing. Please go to www.thewritespot.us. And she could put that in the chat box too. Marlene will read from her self-help writing resource book, The Right Spot, Writing as a Path to Healing.
Thank you, Jean. I'm glad you got on.
Yes, so I'm so sorry, everybody.
Well, you're here. Congratulations to all the authors who produced a book in that very difficult year that we managed to live through. The Right Spot, Writing as a Path. The Right Spot, Writing as a Path to Healing. I'm going to read the introduction. The concept for this book began in 2002, soon after I started facilitating writing workshops. 6 of us gathered weekly using prompts to spark creativity. I noticed how much better everyone seemed to feel after shedding their fears and writing about personal events. Some of the writing in this anthology came from those early workshops. Who Am I by Carol Horn, Sea Glass by Christine Falcon-Daigle, Listen by Helen Pitt. 18 years later, January 2020, I finally felt ready to pursue my dream of producing a book about writing as a path to healing. I emailed invitations to potential participants explaining that I wanted to show or illustrate how writing can contribute to healing. The first submission arrived in my email inbox and I started editing. Then, the 3rd week in March, we were hit with the devastation of COVID. At first I thought sheltered in place won't be a problem. I usually sit at my computer all day by myself and work on writing projects. I'll just keep doing that. But the fears, the anxiety, and the uncertainties took their toll. At times I felt like I was walking underwater wearing lead shoes, slogging through the days. Other times I picked myself up and got back to writing and editing. Around day 64 of shelter in place, it felt like this book would never be completed. But I continued to work with the contributing writers, and with perseverance, we pulled through. At the start of this project, I wasn't sure if the participating writers would understand and be able to produce the type of writing I had in mind. I didn't need to worry. They got it. They went deep and authentic and wrote their stories with honesty and genuineness, even though it was sometimes painful for them to revisit what happened. For example, Jordan Rosenfeld wrote about her special connection with her deceased Opa. In my words, his hands linked with mine. Diane McKay related how she was able to heal emotionally through steady correspondence with a friend. Nancy Julian Kopp discovered that writing finally brought the peace she had sought and not found earlier. And I'm grateful to Sean Langwell for sharing his journey in cathartic writing, the healing power of a story now told. Susan Hagen's story, How Writing Turned Love into Hate, illustrates how writing can heal an old wound. Terry Sloat wrote a fable about acceptance. My piece, Texas Parking Lot, started out as my desire to show an epiphany I realized 56 years after the pivotal event happened. It went through several revisions and became a fleshed out story of my family. Every writer responded to the question, what scares you about writing? It is affirming to hear how writing is scary for others too. The resources section contains information for how to avoid getting re-traumatized when writing about difficult topics. As I wrote this introduction at the end of May 2020, there was talk of a new normal. We still don't know what that means. But we'll always have writing for personal satisfaction and for publication. And now I'd like to read what scares me about writing. Nothing scares me about writing. I take my own advice and just write. What does scare me Is my writing being judged? But the older I get, the less I worry about what others think about me and my writing. The Texas parking lot story, for example, is deeply personal, and it was hard to write. It was difficult because I wanted to get the story right, and I wanted to accurately portray the characters as best as I could, the characters being my family. I wanted to tell what happened and show that if you go deep in your writing, you might find your pivotal moment that forever changed your life. The writing of that story wasn't scary, but it was painful to bring up bad memories. I'm glad I did it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have realized the epiphany. I loved my mother with all my heart until she became someone else and I became my own mother. Thank you.
And our last author, welcome, Eileen English. She had a mother seriously ill most of her childhood and became something of a lost child. Though her life was fueled by an innate sense of optimism and determination. Now a licensed psychotherapist, Eileen helps people reunite with their innate wisdom so they can experience more of the love and connection she believes in is every human's birthright. Eileen will read from her historical nonfiction memoir, Hippie Chick.
Thank you. Thank you, Redwood Writers, for giving us this opportunity. I'm going to describe a young woman I met when I was out there in San Francisco. Early on, Birgit let it be known that she only dated Black men. I can't stand Danish men, she told me. They're so boring and not at all sexy. I have never liked going out with white guys. They act so self-important. No, Black men are really the men that I'm interested in. I love how beautiful they are. Their skin feels so smooth. Their lips are full and they are much more lively, Birgit added, laughing. Since we were pretty much inseparable, I started going out with Black men too, hanging around jazz clubs and meeting jazz musicians. One night we were at a club in North Beach listening to jazz trumpeter Dizzy Gillespie play a gig with a brilliant and famous Brazilian guitarist, Bolicete. It was late and the club was closing. Dizzy came over to our table and invited Birgit and me to come back to his hotel room to get high. Birgit looked to me. I shrugged and said, sure, why not? We arrived at the hotel and took the elevator up to the 14th floor together. I hesitated at the door, noticing that there was nothing but a bed in the room. Birgit, Bolicete, and I sat on the bed while Dizzy went over to the window and started fiddling with the drapery. He then pulled out a small matchbox out from the hem of the drapes. Great hiding place, I commented as I realized what he was up to. Yeah, well, you can't trust anyone, you dig, he said in his gravelly voice. Dizzy rolled a big fat joint and the four of us sat on the bed together, passing it around. I began to feel a bit of nervous energy and had the urge to giggle. I was thinking we were pretty cool hanging out with these big time jazz musicians. Come over here, baby, Dizzy said to Birgit without wasting any time. You're a pretty young thing. Then Bolicete moved in on me. How about giving me a little sugar, baby? Before I had time to answer, he pulled me down and landed a big fat kiss on my mouth. I instantly became alarmed. We were clearly out of our league. These guys were coming on strong. Birgit looked over at me and I signaled, let's go. She nodded and we both jumped up and ran the hell out of there, laughing all the way back to my car. Birgit and I seemed to be magnets for all kinds of encounters with men. There were the two Black guys who lived next door to us on Haight Street. From time to time, they would climb across the rooftop of their building, onto the rooftop of our building, and down the fire escape into our living room window. One of the guys usually had a rope tied around his waist with a collection of his favorite 45s hanging off it. The four of us would get stoned and listen to music. And sometimes, just for fun, we'd have sex with them. Sex was like that then, free love, they called it. Sex wasn't life-threatening or a big deal. It wasn't that different from hugging someone. But actually, in my heart of hearts, it was still a big deal because I could often be found sitting in the bathtub afterwards, trying desperately to feel clean again. I felt bad having sex like that, although I kept doing it. Besides being young and curious, we were caught up in the excitement of breaking out of all the old ways in every way possible. But it was confusing because there were no guidelines and no one to talk to about how to behave or how you were supposed to even feel about sex. It's difficult to understand sex in the 60s without remembering what life was like before the 60s. In the 50s, sex was completely taboo. My parents, who presumably had sex at least 6 times, never spoke of it. It was so rare to see them even hug, let alone kiss. And if ever the subject did come up, they gave almost nothing away, only saying that it was something that happened after you were married. If you can imagine emerging from this repressed background into the 1960s, where we were suddenly equipped with a hugely popular and completely reliable form of birth control, you can also imagine how ill-prepared we were for what was to follow. Though most of us have been brought up to say no to sex, the thing that we constantly worried about, getting pregnant, was no longer an excuse. Now, armed with the pill and every guy knowing you were armed with the pill, you were on the pill, pregnancy was no longer a reason to say no. It's worth remembering too that before feminism, it seemed less threatening to sleep with a guy than to make a scene by saying no. After all, we had been brought up to defer to men, respect their wishes, and listen wide-eyed to their opinions. So free love was really about men satisfying their own needs. Rarely did guys consider whether women found it pleasurable or satisfying. The truth was, there wasn't much in it for women. Sex was for the guy, everyone knew that. I don't think men or women either even knew about the clitoris back then. What women wanted was the same thing we've always wanted, to feel connected, to feel loved. Sex was what you did to be close to men. Being held tenderly would have been as thrilling, but having sex was what was happening. So having sex was what we did. Like the naive girls we were, we'd giggle about our exploits without realizing how damaging our sexual behavior was both to our self-esteem and to our souls.
Wow. Thank you.
It's yours. There you go.
I would like to mention that all the authors, please see at the bottom of your screen, there is a chat place to type in the name of your book and where it can be bought. If it's available on Audible or an ebook, please put that in the chat. And now I would like to ask all the friends and guests to please make sure you also look at the chat box to see if you're interested in the author's books and where they can be bought. Feel free to write any questions in the chat box, and people can stay and have those questions answered by the authors if they would like. I want to thank everybody for coming. It was such a wonderful turnout, and it's always a joy for me to help celebrate all our Redwood writers' publications, because being a published author, I know how much work it is, and I love to celebrate everybody else's work. And I especially want to thank, before anybody leaves, Judy Baker, who rescued me from my technical difficulties because she's such a whiz. A big hug and kiss to Judy. Thank you. She really took over. I so appreciate it. So thank you, everybody, for coming to our celebration. You're welcome to stick around for questions and answers, but feel free to leave at this point. Did Sean or Judy want to
Yeah,
add anything?
Jean, we're gonna go ahead and do,
I'm gonna ask Sean, how do I get back on here?
You gotta go unmute,
you're on. We just need to, you gotta figure out your video. Jean, thank you. I am so grateful that you made it. I was like, how are we gonna do this? You got the last three, you got the hurrah. Let's just take pause and everybody give an applause. I'm not gonna unmute everybody because it's too much, but applause each and every one, and especially Jean and Judy for pulling this off, because it's a lot of work and it's a lot of work and a lot of fun. It's virtual. We did it. We pulled it off. We got, you know, we're going to go a little bit over because there are a couple member announcements. We may forego some of the traditional ones, but there are two very important ones. First up is Judy to talk about an upcoming workshop, and then I'm going to pass it over to Tina, and we will leave the room open for another half an hour if you want to mix and mingle with any of the authors and chit chat amongst yourselves. Thank you all for being here, and thank you, Jean, for putting this together.
Well, thank you, Sean. I really think you and Judy need big stars, hugs, and kisses.
Yes.
The only last thing I want to say is the next author launch better be in person.
Yeah, I vote for that.
Yes, well. And before I go too far along, I do want Marilyn to have a quick opportunity to talk about, after Judy and Tina, the next month's speaker, and Chrissy to just do a quick blurb. We got a short window of anything last minute for the newsletter. Take it away. Hold your book titles up while Judy's doing her thing.
Hold up those books.
Off to the races. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Judy, take it away.
Okay. Well, we just did our first workshop of the year and it was fabulous. We've got another one coming in March with Indigo Moore. And if you got to see him in December, you already got to be introduced to this fabulous writer who works in multiple genres. The workshop is March 10th, a Wednesday night. And here on the screen, you can see all the information, which is also on our website. That is what you're looking at right now. So I encourage you to check that out and please join us. And the pricing is the same for all CWC members.
Thank you, Judy. You know, this is a test of multitasking, juggling, improvisation, and that's what makes it so exciting. Tina, I can't see you on screen, but I know you're here. Are you ready to take it away and talk about the next upcoming contest? You're gonna have to unmute. There you go.
Okay, hi everyone. Fabulous reading today. And it's so exciting to have a novel and different poetry books published. We have a contest coming up and it opens today. As some might know, April is National Poetry Month and there's many ways to celebrate. So if you haven't heard Amanda Gorman read her poem, The Hill We Climb, it's a good month to do it. You can also buy some poetry books from some of the wonderful Redwood writers we heard today. That's another way. But one of the fun ways you can also celebrate is to submit a poetry to our poetry contest, which is coming up. Let's see here. It is going to, let's see, the poetry contest opens today and will close on April 15th at 9 p.m. All submissions will be submitted online. You're able to submit up to 3 poems, and please remember to make them blind so our judges won't know who's sending them. And poems will be accepted from everyone, including non-members, Redwood writers, and all CWA members. Cash prizes will be given out and announcements will be made of those prizes and winners on May 15th. But wait, there's more, just really quick for an extra treat. Fran Claggett Holland, who has served as the editor and co-editor for the Redwood Writers Annual Poetry Anthologies, has a special offer for the poets submitting. Before submitting, you can email Fran her poems and email your poems to Fran, and she will assist you in structure, content, and rhythm to ensure your poems achieve that perfect winning pitch. For fees, rules, guidelines, and further details and how to submit the poems, you can visit the Redwood Writers website, and we'll have that page up shortly. Okay, all righty. So get out there and hope you're inspired from all those great poets we heard today and wonderful prose writers as well.
Thank you, Tina.
For sure.
And Marilyn, do you want to give a little heads up? It'll be in the newsletter in a couple of weeks, but give a tease of who's coming up in March and April.
Sure. Well, let me just tag onto what Tina just said about poetry and poets, because in April, let me look at the calendar here, April 17th, a Saturday, Phyllis Mechalon, who is the current Sonoma County Poet Laureate, will be our featured speaker. So we did schedule her, Phyllis Mechalon, so that it would be in April, which is the month of poetry. So it's kind of like a double hitter here for Redwood writers, for poets and would-be poets, right? So that will be very exciting. Just another comment about Phyllis. She's the author of 5 collections of poetry, most recently Land of My Father's War, and she's won all kinds of awards and has taught at the Ars Medica to teachers and writers and in the California poets in the schools for over 20 years, I believe. So I think we're very fortunate to have booked Phyllis Mechalon. And next month, in March, we also have what I think just a fascinating author. Sarah Rabkin will be the featured presenter, and this will be on Saturday, March 20th. So again, we're going to have Indigo Moore, as Judy already mentioned, who'll be doing the workshop on screenwriting on March 10th. And then make a note, though, that on March 20th, Saturday, we'll have this featured presentation by Sarah Rabkin. And just quickly, the title of her presentation is Writing the Image, Drawing the Text. And Sarah's an author and science journalist by training. She's run a lot of workshops at the Sitka Center for Art and Ecology, and will be showing us the ways visual and verbal expression can stimulate and enrich each other. She'll show us examples from the illustrated journals she's been keeping for decades, sharing her experiences and musings as a writer who also makes pictures. So I think that's really going to be a dynamic and interesting presentation, and encourage you to let everybody know, and I hope you can be there.
Great. Thank you, Marilyn.
Sean.
One quick sec, Roger.
Okay.
Robin, I don't want, this is your first year of doing the salon, and I know you put it in chat. You want to go ahead and let people know what you put in chat briefly? You got to unmute first.
Hi. Yes, I just wanted to let everyone know that we are having salon next Saturday. So if you haven't signed up for that, you can email me at Gabbert, Gabbert, Robin with an I, @gmail.com. We do have one reader's slot still open, I believe. So, and of course, you're welcome to come and listen as well. Actually, I think it's possible that one other person might drop out. So we might have 2 reader slots available. So please sign up and come to Salon next Saturday if you can. And I believe it's at 1 o'clock. Let me just double check that. Yep, 1 o'clock next Saturday. So email me if you're interested in joining our writer's salon next Saturday.
Awesome. Thank you. Go ahead, Roger.
Oh, I just wanted to say, to piggyback with Marilyn, the poet laureate who will speak in April has 3 poems in the upcoming Beyond Distance Redwood anthology. And that anthology, the poetry anthology, will be available for sale in the April meeting. It's just gone to print, so it's in proof at this moment.
Perfect.
With hundreds of authors' poetry. It's a great volume. I've gone through it with the team, but we do know that the poet laureate's work is featured in there. And so just encourage everybody, when it is announced, get your book She can't sign it for you this time, but she can sign it sometime in the future.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Roger. That's really good.
Great. And I do want, Chrissy, is there anything, are you still on here? Is there anything you need to mention last minute about newsletter stuff?
Just that deadline, of course, has passed because now we do our meetings on the third Sunday of the month, or sorry, third Saturday of the month. So it has passed, but I am lenient. If you get it to me within the next few days, if you have an announcement that you'd like to include, this includes, like, you know, if you've just published a book, if you have a virtual event coming up, if you have been published in an article or anything along those lines. We have other things that you can share in there as well. Like if you're reading something interesting, I'd love to hear about that. Take a look through our last newsletter and just see what opportunities there are for you to contribute to this and get your voice out there, because the more you get your voice out there, the more we get to know you and your name gets familiar and we want to buy your books. And, you know, there's a little bit of a give and take here. So check it out and I'd love to hear your announcement. Thank you.
Thank you. And at this time, we're a little bit over, but you know what? I think it was so worth it. And given the hiccups we had at the beginning, it's phenomenal. The room's going to stay open, which means at this time, if there are any member announcements, just go ahead and raise your hand and we'll keep it rolling. We're going to leave the room open until 3 o'clock. So are there any member announcements other than what we already heard from all the wonderful readers today?
Judy Baker has her hand up, Sean.
Judy.
I'm going to put it into the chat, but there is a free webinar coming up that I am doing with my East Coast partner, and it is Habits for Success in Book Marketing. It'll be on March 1st, coming right around the corner, and it is at 12 noon, and I'll pop that link right in here where you can register for that. And there's no charge for this one, as I said. So
awesome. And I just changed the settings. So anybody who wants to unmute themselves and just jump in, feel free to talk amongst yourselves and jump in and have a free for all. I don't know about you guys, but this was really, really fun. Yes, Roger.
Maybe we should announce in the upcoming newsletter, there'll be information about the new member email system, because we are initiating a new system for all the members beginning in March, where we can communicate with one another through email, so you can announce events and so on, as we used to do in Yahoo. And that's in a program called Group IO, but we'll explain it a little bit in the newsletter, and then you'll get a letter from me inviting you to join. And then when you join, you can use the email system like we used to use Yahoo. So when you get that email in Constant Contact that says, or in Group IO that says you're invited, please go ahead and open that up.
Thank you for that reminder. And I'm glad Roger's been beta testing it and getting it set up. I've done a little bit and it's going to be real seamless and simple. So Jean, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to invite any guests or other than, or even the authors, if anybody had any questions they wanted to ask the authors about their stories or books.
Thanks for reminding me of that, because you mentioned it earlier.
I thought there would be more.
This is live up here. There's so many. I have one question, and I cannot, for the life of me, I can't remember who the author was because there was a dozen. Who wrote the book about the Nazi Germany?
Ida.
It was Ida.
Yeah.
Ida, are you still on?
Amazing story.
Maybe she's gone.
You may have boogied.
She boogied. Yeah,
Yeah, she said
that
it
story
took
got to me.
20 years of research to write that book.
That's what I was going to ask her, is how she came to find those vivid stories. It's just so powerful. So
Yeah, yeah.
Well, even with all of the little bit of tension at the beginning, everyone did a beautiful job and folks stayed on track, on time. And we could see and hear everybody. I am just ecstatic. It was amazing.
You were amazing.
You know what? I didn't have time to get nervous.
Teamwork.
I really can't wait to see everybody in person. I have a total block against all this techie stuff. Makes me very nervous.
yeah, but
just
you know
gotta
what you,
reframe it.
you know what
You just
you
gotta
know what you
reframe it.
did, Jean? Sorry, Judy. You actually were talking about telling people to put stuff in chat and do that. And that's like, yes, go ahead, Judy.
Yeah, I mean, this is not ideal. We all get it. But if you start thinking about it differently, that we still get to be connected. It's
That's
a great
why
opportunity.
you're so good at it, Judy. You have a positive attitude.
I meditated right before you called me, thank God, because otherwise my hair would have been on fire.
You must have been cursing me out.
No, I felt so badly because I couldn't fix what was going on because I wasn't sure what was causing it. So I just said, okay, I got to put on my problem solver hat, and I did what I thought would work, and it did. So thank God.
I know
Thank
Judy
God
and
for
I
the
went to
God.
Judy and I went to an Al-Anon meeting because we couldn't fix it, and we just came back. We're like, didn't cause it, can't fix it. I just, what are we
You
gonna
don't
do?
know what's in my water bottle, honey.
Nancy, you
It
got
is
your hand
water.
up. I'm trying to look at all this screen. How are you? Unmute yourself, my dear. You give it another try.
There it is.
There you
Okay.
go.
I wanted to say thank you so much to Jean and Judy. I have to go into another Zoom event momentarily, so I'm going to have to leave, but thank you, everyone. That was really wonderful. Thanks so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
So how many people are left here? 23?
Yeah.
By a show of hands, how many people are optimistic that we'll actually be able to meet again in person before the end of the year?
Oh, I have something to show.
Please do.
Can everybody see this?
I don't know. Let me spotlight you. We'll see what we
I'll
can
put
do.
it on my face.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Congratulations.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
I have hope.
Yes, absolutely.
I fought to get this vaccine. It is so hard to get. I get the second one in 2 weeks.
Good. Good.
What
for
Lucky
you.
you.
Yeah.
So there it is.
Me too. I'm in 2 weeks as well.
Yay.
Yay.
Yeah, good for you.
I have
And
hope.
any of you who haven't been vaccinated yet, call your doctor's office. Tell them you'd like to be on a wait list because often they are also helping other facilities inoculate people. And if there's leftovers, they will call you and say, can you come now? So don't think you have to wait forever. Just call your doctor on Monday.
You have to be really assertive.
Squeaky,
Yeah.
squeaky, squeaky.
Squeaky wheel.
Oh, I can unmute. Thank you guys so much. I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me. I know I'm a new member and I don't know anybody here at all. And it's a really weird time to start in Redwood Writers because everything is Zoom. And I just wanted to say a huge thanks for even letting me be a part of your club. It's a really big deal to me because I've always wanted to share my works and you guys are so welcoming and amazing.
Thank you.
And believe me, we're really used to hugging and kissing everybody.
I know. Oh my gosh.
Sean, can I say something?
Please
Um,
do. Go.
I wanted to thank whoever put together the email we got with all the books on it and all the information about how to log in and when to log in. And that was just really nice and concise, and I really appreciate it. And I love seeing all the book covers since, you know, we didn't have a handout. So thank you very much.
John, can I ask a question? Pam over
Yep.
here. Did you say that our next upcoming poetry anthology is coming out in April?
Roger did. It's in production right now, and it should come out in April for Poetry Month. Yes.
That's really interesting because I never heard a word back, either yay or nay on anything with that book. And so should I be getting in touch with somebody to see what happened?
I think it got rubber stamped, to tell you the truth. But if you're concerned, I did the same thing. Les said that it was,
everybody, is that what you're telling me?
I have a feeling.
Uh-huh. All right, so it's fine. You know, I guess I didn't need to be edited, and I'm probably in. I just was curious.
Hey,
Yeah,
Leo,
it
do you want to?
was a little different this last go round, and yeah, you probably did get into, but yeah, check with Roger because I know he went through
right
all of the
parts and read it all. Okay, Roger, is he still on or is he gone?
No, Roger's gone.
Okay, I know where to find. I know where to find him.
Yeah, you can email Les. Les can tell you.
Yeah,
for sure.
Leo, you want to put a plug about what you put in chat, just in case people didn't see it real quick, because there's a handful of authors still here, and I think it's important.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sean. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can see you.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to say unfortunately, we're not taking books on consignment right now. But if you guys have information about the Redwood writers or book bars or things about your books, you can always bring it to our store. And we always, when people come and ask, say that they like to write, they want to publish their books, we're always trying to refer them to the Redwood writers and tell them what a wonderful organization it is. So yeah, just trying to get more people into the club and get more support for all our local writers.
Thank you, Leo.
Thank you.
It's like that awkward silence waiting for your flight at Southwest if they're going to call your early boarding.
Yeah,
I wish.
Yeah.
So I don't know where that came from, but I'd love to be able to fly and get about the country, but I'm not ready to do it yet.
I have one question. My work in progress right now is a mystery thriller. Is there any contest? Like, I'm new to professional writing, so I don't know, pretty much pretend I'm just like a sponge. I don't know anything. And I just don't know where to go with this stuff. Is there any contest that we do with mystery thrillers by chance, or any kind of anything special for mystery thrillers?
Not that I know of, Brittany, but I do know Roger. Reach directly out to Roger Lubeck because he likes to write mystery and thriller too. There may be some other contests we're not doing at the club that he's aware of. It doesn't mean we won't do one in the future, but I know we've got the poetry one, and Tina's got another one set up for prose in a few months after that. So
those I'm excited about.
But if you're working on it, and sometimes a Google search will produce something and you're like, oh, I didn't think of that. So
yeah, for contests outside of Redwood Writers, check Poets and Writers. They have a really good list, and so does Reedsy.
Reedsy, okay.
Yeah, those are two good places to look for contests, and you won't find phony baloney ones in either one of those places.
That's the trouble that I'm running into. Is all these sites are fake. There's so many submissions. They want you to submit your uncopyrighted work to, and I don't know what to do.
Writer's Digest also has a contest coming up, and the deadline is March 15th, and it covers a whole lot of different genres. So if you go to Writer's Digest, that probably gets some information on that, and they're legit.
Thank you. Because the internet is just not my friend right now.
Oh, you can get
Just
lost.
have to be careful.
I'm gonna have to leave, Sean, and everybody.
Yeah.
I just want to say again, thank you, especially Jean and especially Judy and you, Sean, for putting on this wonderful production, and all of our wonderful authors. I just am really impressed and appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Are there a recording of this?
Yes.
Yep, it's still recording actually through here. Judy, do you want me to pause it?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and pause it?